Hey everyone, it's my week to update the new and improved TexasMusicandArts.com, and I thought I would start a series of instructional videos that hopefully the rest of the department will contribute to, and eventually we'll have a wide range of topics that we address. I wanted to start with guitar, which is probably the cheapest and easiest way to start a music program at your core. And there's also been a lot of recent developments in curriculum in the past couple years that will really give this program a kickstart. On our website, I've gone ahead and uploaded a few cheat sheets I've made through the years, one called Guitar Basics, another Bass Guitar Basics, and Music Theory Basics. And these will be good supplemental materials to guitar curriculum that's come out in the territory. Jimmy Cox from the AOK division has put out these books called The Contemporary Guitarist. These books come with a DVD instruction and also an accompaniment CD, so you really don't even have to have a trained leader to start this program at your core. On top of these physical resources, I wanted to share some insights on the capo with you today. The capo is probably known as the guitar player's best friend, or other people even call it the worst enemy. It seems that every guitar player eventually learns how to use the capo through trial and error, but then when it comes to trying to teach someone else, explain it to them, or when you're working with a praise band and they're not using the capo, how do you communicate with each other? Everything gets a little bit jumbled, so I wanted to try and clear up some of those issues today. As I said, some people see the capo as an enemy in that it limits your progress on the guitar. Let me just stress from the start of this video that in order to use the capo properly, you need to start off with a working knowledge of all available open chords. The acoustic guitar in particular is known for its resonance and fullness of sound, and this comes from using chord shapes that use as many open strings as possible. For instance, the traditional G chord uses 3 open strings. I'm pushing down on the E, A, and high E strings, and then the D, G, and B strings are all open. We'll compare that to the G bar chord, where my first finger goes across all strings on the 3rd fret, and then the rest of my fingers are making an E shape now up the neck. I hope you can tell the difference in the traditional G and the G bar chord. It just doesn't have as much brilliance, as much sustain as the open G because I'm pushing down on all the strings. It's important to associate open chords with their respective key signatures. I'm not going to get into a whole lot of music theory today, but I'm going to stick to the number system. So if you have any questions, you can go back to my music theory cheat sheet on the website. So let's go back to G, which is where a lot of guitarists start out. If we're in the key of G, G is our 1 chord or tonic. The 4 chord and the 5 chord are also pretty prevalent in most chord progressions, as well as the 6 chord. So we just kind of count on our fingers. If G is our 1 chord, then A, B, C would be our 4 chord, D our 5 chord, and then E minor is our 6 chord. Again, not too much theory today, but normally the 1, 4, and 5 chords are major, and then the 2, 3, and 6 chords are minor. So we know the G chord. Then we have the C chord, which uses 2 open strings. Our 5 chord, D, only has 1 open string. And then E minor, our minor 6, has 4 open strings, which is a very sustained chord on the acoustic guitar. So once we know at least 1, 4, 5, and 6 in the key of G, we need to also learn those in the other open keys before we really go on with the capo.
Let's take a look at the 5 keys that include open chords for the guitar. From this diagram, you can see these keys are C, G, D, A, and E. As you scan through, you'll notice that even these 5 keys include some chords that would typically be barred, such as B minor, B, C sharp minor, and F sharp minor. However, when playing in particular keys, you can use cheater chords or added tone chords to allow at least a couple strings to ring open. Again, you can refer to the Guitar Basics document on our website for more specific chord diagrams. Unfortunately, there is no cheater chord for F major, so you will have to learn the F bar chord or the traditional F that only uses the D string down. Once your muscle memory is pretty quick with most of the chords in these 5 keys, you're ready to move on to the capo.
There are 3 main reasons for using the capo. The first reason I think is the most prevalent, where the original key lacks a lot of open chords. The second, the original key of the song, is too high or low for your voice or your congregation. And the third, which is a little less common, we would try to spread the sound throughout the full tonal range. I'm going to go over each one of these, so I know there's probably some confusion at the start, but let me start back with the first reason, where there's not a lot of open chords in the key the song is given. So let's imagine we're in the key of B. All right, so we know B, if we're not in the key of E, is going to be a bar chord. E is our 4 chord. So you do have an open chord, but then you have to use F sharp major, another bar chord, and then G sharp minor. So this is a key that uses mostly bar chords on the guitar, and it's not really a very pretty sound, and your fingers are going to start hurting after a while. So what we do to use the capo is we find the bass note of our 1 chord, our tonic chord. We're in the key of B, so our bass note is here. It's on the A string, 2nd fret, which is a B. Since our bass note is on the 2nd string, we then think about the open chords that also have a bass note on the 2nd string. The only 2 chords that we know open on the 2nd string are C, bass note right there on the 3rd fret, and of course, A major. Let me just explain what we're doing here with the capo. This is the nut of the guitar that the strings lie over. We're moving the nut up and essentially shortening the strings, making the pitch higher. So whatever chord we choose in this case has to be below our initial chord. Our initial key is B on the 2nd fret, C is on the 3rd fret, so really A is our best bet in this case. So once we know we're going to use A, then we have to figure out what do we have to do to A's bass note to make it sound like a B. Well, A's bass note is the open A string, and we know that the B chord was on the 2nd fret, so I've got to go up 2 frets. So I'm just going to take my capo, I'm going to place it on the 2nd fret, as close to the next fret as possible, and trying to be parallel with the fret. Now all we have to do is use the A-shaped chords that we already know, but we just understand that the next fret up after the capo is the 1st fret, 2nd fret, and so on. So we have that change. So now I can play A here, and that sounds exactly like the B we were going for, but just a little more open because the capo puts more pressure than my finger would. So now we have to kind of transpose the song, and of course there's programs on the internet that do that for you, but if you want to do it yourself, we just have a couple ways we can think about it. We've been using the number system a lot, so what you can do is go to the key of B and kind of figure out what each chord is number-wise. So B is 1, E would be 4, F sharp major would be 5, and so on. And then we go to A and figure out what 1, 4, 5, and 6, or whatever chords they're using are, and we can just make that correlation. The other way we can look at it is to figure out what we did to the key to get from B to A. So I moved the capo up 2 frets, so essentially I took B down 2 steps, down 2 half steps to get to the key of A. So what I can do is look at every chord and say, all right, B, I have to go down a whole step, that's A. E, I have to go down a whole step, that's D, and so on. So either way, you can kind of figure it out. The second reason to use a capo is if the song's original key is too high or too low for your voice. So let's imagine that the original key was G, but it's too low, so we're just going to bump it up 3 frets and play the same shapes that we already know. Easy enough for us on the guitar, but we need to be able to explain this to the rest of the band. So we need to find where our bass note is of the 1 or tonic chord. If we're playing G, the bass note is on the E string, but now I'm on the 6th fret. This is a B flat, so now we know that the band is playing in the key of B flat. So now we have to go either again using the number system or the second method I talked about and figure out what chords the band is playing. So if I'm playing 1, 4, and 5 again, G, C, D, the band is in B flat. So again, you can use your fingers or whatever you want to do. B flat, C, D, E flat is going to be my 4, and F is going to be my 5. Now what I normally do is print all music in the original key. That way the pianist and the bassist, they all have the original, and then I either just transpose in my mind or I'll make another sheet for myself that just has the capo chords. This way there's a lot less to explain during rehearsal. Taking a song down is probably more common and might be a little trickier. you can't just move the capo up and use the same chord shapes because, as we talked about earlier, the capo is moving the nut higher, so we have to have the new chords be lower than the original chords. So let's imagine the original song is in the key of G, and we want to take it down 2 half steps, which would be the key of F. Now, on top of transposing the chords for your band to play in the key of F, now you have to also figure out what chords you're going to play because F uses bar chords. That was our 1, our 4. Our 5 chord is C, which is an open chord, but for the most part, all the chords are barred, and so we have to figure out what to do on the acoustic guitar to make an open sound. So the key of F, our 1 chord, uses a bass note on the bottom string. So we have to think about the other open chords that use the bottom string for their bass note. We of course have G, and we have E. Now, as I said before, since we'll be moving the nut this way, the chord needs to be lower than the original. F is on the 1st fret, G is on the 3rd fret, so we're better off going with the key of E. So then again, like we did with the last example, we have to figure out how do we get F to be our bass note. All right, so to go from E to F, I've gone up 1 fret, so I simply place my capo on the 1st fret, and now I play in the key of E, bumping everything up 1 fret, and so on. Our third reason is a little more specialized. We're going to try to spread the sound throughout the full tonal range. So basically, if you have 2 guitar players and they're playing the same exact chords the whole song, it gets a little muddy. The same is true if you have a pianist that plays in the same range. Now, the pianist can easily change octaves or do different voicings, but especially if you have 2 guitar players, you need to think about where you're playing on the neck so that what you're doing complements each other rather than competes with each other. Let's say our original song is in the key of A, which is already an open key. We need to figure out another capoed key for the second guitar player to play. So what we do is we use our bass strings to kind of figure out where we can play another A. So on the E string, E, F, G, A, we can find an A right there on the 5th fret. So if we put our capo on the 5th fret, we can now play in the key of E. There's our 1, 4, and 5, which sounds exactly like 1, 4, and 5 in the original key. So it's spreading the sound up a little bit for the second guitar player. We can also find an A on the D string. So we have D, E, F, G, A. Same note, just an octave higher. So again, we can put our capo here now on the 7th fret and play in the key of D. All right, that's getting a little bit higher, but that might be the sound you want for a particular song. But it's giving us those same chords that we have in the key of A. Now let's use another example. If we're in the key of D, the 3rd string down, the D string is our bass note, so then we would look at the other 2 strings to figure out where to place the capo. You can find a D on the A string here on the 5th fret, so we would place the capo there just like we did with the previous example, and then we can play in the key of A. That gives us our 1, 4, and 5, just like here. If we want to find a D on the bottom E string, we've got to go up pretty high to the 10th fret. So we can put the capo here on the 10th fret and play in the key of E, but the sound's getting pretty thin, and we're also getting very close to the body of the guitar, so it's going to be hard to play all the chord shapes you need. Now, on top of E being an open chord on the E string, we also know that we have G here on the 3rd fret. So what we can do, we know that the D is here on the 10th fret. Since this is on the 3rd fret, we're going to subtract 3 frets from that. 1, 2, 3. And we can place our capo on the 7th fret now and play those same chords in the key of G. All right, so again, we would have those 3 options. We have the open D, really high up here on the neck, or again, dropping it 3 frets, we can play in the key of G, which would give us a better result. I know this is a lot to take in, so be sure to review this video and slow it down if you need to. You can also go to our website, texasmusicandarts.com, to see some of the resources for more help, including the music theory basics, which might be useful. If you have any further questions, feel free to contact us on Facebook, email, or phone, and we're happy to answer any questions and give you some help. We'd look forward to hearing about your music program, and keep practicing and using your gifts for God. Look out for our next video to come.